Hi everybody, welcome back to the Claremont Classic Garage. We're going to carry on working on our little gray Ferguson here. What we're going to do today is get the calcium chloride out of these tires. As far as calcium chloride goes, the benefits are great, the extra weight, the traction it provides, but quite frankly, here's what I don't like. It is so highly corrosive, it destroys everything in its path. It eats your wheels. FYI, if you get a leak, this is what calcium chloride does to tractor wheels. That was a 32-inch 9N wheel. So I'm in the market for one if anybody's got one kicking around. And a lot of times on these old tractors, the valve core gets eaten by the calcium chloride, and then you literally only have the cap holding it in, and it just slowly seeps out, and it eats everything. So I'm going to show you how you can get the stuff out of there without making too big of a mess. First thing we got to do is jack the thing up and get the valve to the top. There's a few things you're going to need before you do this job. A 45-gallon drum. An empty 45-gallon drum will basically take all the calcium out of a Ferguson or an 8N with 11-28 tires. We'll fill it up to about here. You're going to need a few different pieces of hose. And what I use to actually suck it out once I get it going is this here is a water pump from an RV. 12 volt, works perfect. It makes lots of vacuum, and it can push the stuff. So what we're going to do right now is take the valve core out and get the first little bit of it, because technically when they fill these things up, they're only supposed to fill them up to here so that you can take it up to the top and take the core out of the valve stem without having 15 psi of air shooting calcium chloride out at you. But that's not how they do it. They usually fill them up to here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the valve core out, and not standing in the way of it, because you do not want to get this stuff on yourself or anything of your person, because it'll literally burn you. So first thing we do is take the valve cap off, and if the valve core is all rotted out, by now we'd have calcium spraying all over the place, and we don't, so that's a good thing. Now what we've got right now is just a loose piece of hose that goes into the top of the barrel. So when I get the valve core out, if it'll come out, here it comes, like there's calcium spraying out of it already. And then when you're done, everything that you're using, clean it with water, lots of water. There. And that'll at least get the first little bit out of it that the actual air pressure in the tire is going to push out. And then we'll go on to step 2. Now that all the air is out of it, it pushed out all that it was going to push out. So what I've done now is let the jack down. So now the weight of the tractor is slowly going to compress the tire, and that'll push more of it out. Then when I hear it, no more coming out the hose, then we'll jack it back up and hook the pump up to it. All right, that step is finished. We squeezed out as much as we could, so at least now I can pull this hose off and I can work without getting soaked. So we'll get this hose out of the way. We'll just kind of do this and get the last remnants of calcium chloride out of it. We'll run fresh water through this after too to rinse it out. Everything that we're using here will get rinsed out. Now what we're going to do you can remove, if you want, you can remove this little insert. It will come out. That's what adapts the water fill size, basically, down to normal Schrader valve size. But I'm going to leave this one in because sometimes taking these out is a recipe for disaster, because you twist the fitting right off the tube and everything. I've had bad experiences. So we're not in a huge hurry, so we're just going to put that on there put a clamp on it. There's an actual tool you can buy. I'll show it to you right now. Just give me a sec to find it. So here's the tool. It screws onto there. It's handy when you're putting the calcium in because you squeeze that and it relieves any air pressure that's building up in there, so you can slowly get your tire filled up. But for getting it out, you don't really need this. Now the other end of this gets hooked up to our RV pump. Then we turn this down to the bottom. And turn our pump on. There it goes. See? And we just let it run until there's no more fluid coming out, and you'll actually see the tire start to kind of collapse as it creates a vacuum in there. That also helps to get the stuff out. Well, you can see how our pump is collapsing the tire in as it pulls the fluid out. There's still lots of it coming out. So when I hear it start to not pick up fluid, we'll lower the jack down and let everything squish down and get the last little bit of it out. You'll always have, there's probably always going to be like a gallon or two left in there. That's no big deal. The only way really around that would be to break it down and actually take the tubes out and kind of hang them to get it all out. There's an old tube on the ground there that still has a little bit in it. We'll be hooking that up to the machine and getting that little dreg sucked out of that once we're done here, if we got enough room in our bucket. We can hear now our pump has gone into no load, so it's not getting much fluid out now. Just a few little drips here and there. So what we're going to do is let the jack down and squash up that little bit that's hanging down there, and we'll get a little more fluid out. Hear it start working there? And then once it's done, we'll jack it up and open that hose. It'll relieve the vacuum in the tube and everything will pop back and we can fill it up with air and be good to go. So the pump has gone into no load again because it's not really doing anything. So we'll just let it run like that for a second to get any last few little drips that are in there. Then we'll shut it down. I can jack it up and we'll get ready to put air back in it. Now we're going to unscrew this fitting on here, and that'll let this thing suck in some air, and the tire will start coming back to its normal shape. You can hear there's still a little water in there, but not much we can do about it. You can see the tire coming back to shape. Now we can get some air back in it. You usually run them up to about 15. Everybody's got their own preference of what they should be at. Depends what you're doing with it. If you're running it on the road, if you're plowing. Okay. She's full of air. Now I can let the jack back down. And we can continue on with the job. Now, before I put all this stuff away, I do have a little room left in my bucket. I'm going to get the dregs of calcium that are in this old inner tube here so I can get rid of it. Well, we've got a little bit of space left in our barrel, and I'm going to see if I can get what's left of the calcium in this old inner tube out. There's not really too much in it. Once it gets going, I'll kind of lift it up and maybe throw it over this here stool. There we go. And now I got to keep an eye on the barrel because she's getting pretty full. Our barrel's full, so we've moved to jugs now. We'll probably fill this jug in another one, I would guess. There's a lot more in that tube than it looked like. Oh, maybe not. Might be done. What you're hearing now is the leak in the tube. What we're going to do now that we've finished our job, we got to flush all this stuff out. We don't want any calcium sitting in any of this stuff, especially that pump, because they cost a lot of money to replace. So what I've done is I've basically connected together every hose that we've used today, and I'm going to run the pump till I empty that bucket of soapy water. And that'll flush everything out. There it goes. Oh, look at the gut coming out of there. Well, that's a wrap on that. I'm pretty happy now. There's no more calcium in our tires. They're sure a lot easier to handle, and the tractor likes it a lot better. What do you know? The brakes actually work because they're not trying to stop an extra 300 pounds of rotating mass. It's win-win. Anyway, we're going to move on to the rest of this job, and I'll see you over there. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time. So long.